Thank you for joining us today for our Hanamatsuri service. I'm Jeannie Toshima, and I would like to start our very special service with a short reading about Hanamatsuri from the book, Buddha is Our Teacher. Buddha was born 2,500 years ago. Our teacher, Buddha, was born at a place called Lumbini in Nepal. His real name is said to have been Siddhartha Gautama. He is also known as Shakyamuni Buddha, or simply Buddha. Buddha himself led a rich life as a prince of the Shaka clan. But when he saw many people in his kingdom suffering from disease and lack of food, he left his castle and began to train and study on his own. After 6 years of hard training, Buddha reached enlightenment. This means he understood the entire truths of the world. After reaching enlightenment, Buddha devoted himself to teaching people how to live properly without suffering. Until he died at the age of 80, he taught us how to be kind and find peace of mind. Buddha's teachings are called Buddhism and are followed in Japan and around the world. Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu.
Thank you again for joining us. We will now have the liturgical portion of our Hanamatsuri service, which will be the chanting of the Juseige. Please follow along reverently or join me in the chanting of the Juseige. We rely upon the source of limitless wisdom and endless life. Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu. Busatsu, Daimuryo, Jukyo, Juseige, Gagoncho, Segan, Hishimu, Jodo, Shigan, Hu, Mandoku, Seifujo, Shogaku, Gao, Muryoko, Uindai, Seishu, Fusai, Sho, Bingu, Seifujo, Shogaku, Gashijo, Butendo, Myoshoto, Jippo, Kukyomi, Shomon, Seifujo, Shogaku, Ryokujin, Shonen, Joeshu, Bongyo, Shigumu, Jodo, Isho, Teninshi, Jinrikien, Daiko, Ushomu, Taido, Shoujo-san, Kumyo, Kothai-shu, Yakunan, Kaihichi, Eigen, Meshi-kon, Moan, Hei Sokusho, Akudo, Sudatten, Shumon, Kothojo, Mandoku, Iolo, Jippo, Nichigatten, Shujuki, Tenko, Onhugen, Ishu, Kai, Hodo, Koseku, Dokuho, Jo-dai, Shuchu, Seppo, Shiku, Kuyo, Ithaya, Buten, Gu, Sokushu, Tokuhon, Ganeshten, Hyoman, Tokui, Sangayo, Nyobuten, Mugechi, Tudaten, Mifusho, Gangaku, Eriki, Toshi, Sai, Shoson, Shiganya, Koka, Daisen no Kando, Koku sho tenin Touchin myoke. Namanabu, 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 Namanabu. Kani shiku doku byodo sei isai don moda ishin onyo a la koku. Namanda burmanda namanda bu namanda bu namanda burmanda. Namo Mita Butsu, Namanda Butsu, Namo Mita Butsu, Namanda Butsu, Namanda Butsu, Namo Mita Butsu, Namanda Butsu. We rely upon the source of limitless wisdom and endless life. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Well, good morning again, and thank you for joining us for this service. As Jeannie has told you, this is our Hanamatsuri service. Hanamatsuri literally means flower festival, but this is, of course, the commemoration of the birth of the founder of Buddhist tradition, Shakyamuni. We are recording this service for April 11th of 2021 for the Pasadena Buddhist Temple. But whenever you are observing this and participating, thank you. Thank you for joining us. The birth of the Buddha, which we commemorate today, it traditionally dated 615 BC, 615 BCE, about 2,536 years ago, something like that. He was born, the founder of Buddhist tradition was born in a small, but at the time a wealthy kingdom of Magadha, which is currently in Nepal, part of current-day Nepal. Shakyamuni, the Buddha-to-be, was born the regent-elect. He was elected by an oligarchy, by his clan. The larger group of Shakyas had decided he would be the next king. It's a democratic system where only the rich are allowed to vote. It's similar to the system they want to put into place in Georgia these days. Again, this was in Magadha, and it was specifically in Lumbini's garden. It might not have been known as Lumbini's garden at the time, but it is now. It was named after Shakyamuni's grandmother. That was who Lumbini was. It was his father's mother, Lumbini. Shakyamuni's birth is important because of what he subsequently realized and taught, because of his subsequent teachings and his insight. His 45-year career of teaching spirituality to everyone, a path of awakening for everyone. This is why he's important. Now, there's a myth that the Buddha was born and then took 7 steps and pointed above and below and said, "In the heavens above, on earth here below, I alone am the world honored one." But as I tell you every year, probably the correct translation of that is something more like, "We be cool. We be cool," because it is about we and not he. Awoken persons alone deserve the honor of all the world, are world honored. Awoken persons, a person who has awoken to the deep oneness of all, is uniquely valuable to all of us. But we can all be such persons. As Buddhists, we understand Shakyamuni Buddha to be an embodiment of ultimate reality, an embodiment of the profound truth of life, a person through whom the universe knows and expresses itself, just like you and me. You and I and all people are really, from the Buddhist perspective, potentially just as worthy as the Buddha, as Jesus, as the God of the monotheistic religions. There's just 2 qualifications. Firstly, not only are you and I and everyone we know just as worthy as Krishna and the Buddha, just as having that same potential for awakening, but that's also true about crazy Aunt Madeline, and mean crazy Aunt Madeline. We all have a crazy, mean aunt. She may not be named Madeline in all our families, and she may not always be an aunt. She may be Cousin May or Cousin Ken or Uncle Ken. But, the meanest, most disagreeable person in your family is also an embodiment of reality, a potential awoken person, a potential for awakening, a platform for Buddhahood. We are all that. And again, so is the family dog, an expression of ultimate reality. The mean old dog with bad gas, he too is an expression of ultimate truth. All living things are equally expressions of the universe. All living things are modes of the universe's self-knowledge. The Buddhist vision is utterly egalitarian, thoroughly democratic, more so than most of us really want it to be. Something educated Christians sometimes talk about is, could Hitler go to heaven, Well, from our perspective, can Hitler go to the Pure Land? Yeah, sure. In fact, Tojo almost certainly did. The Prime Minister of Japan during World War II, he was of a Zen orientation and was brought onto the Jodo Shinshu path by Reverend Hanayama on death row in prison. So he almost surely is entered into the light, entered into goodness and truth. Everybody's welcome. It doesn't matter how badly you've messed up. Our approach is very inclusive. Humans, biological beings, we have no other fixed nature, nothing other than awakening to be our ultimate nature. This is also true of homeless, multiply addicted people. It's also true of the gassy old mean dog and the crazy ant. So there's no reason for you or I to take excessive pride in the fact that we have Buddha nature, but we do. We too can be a platform for awakening the way Shakyamuni Buddha was. We too can be a source of goodness the way the Buddha was. Buddhas are persons who know this identity with all things. They know their identity with all things in a thoroughgoing way, and they live accordingly. Now, the second qualification, besides that everybody's got it, so no reason for excessive pride for our Buddha nature, the other qualification is that right now it is a potential and not fulfilled in you or I, certainly not in I. Buddhas realize that potential. It's not just theoretical for Shakyamuni. It wasn't just theoretical. Rather, the virtue and the power that the Buddhas are in touch with is and was real, was and is real. To say simply that we all have the potential to become Buddhas could be rather superficial. It's like saying we all have the potential to be President of the United States, And I am a candidate in 2024. I'm not going to... No, 2028. I'm sorry, I'm not running in 2024. In 2028, I will be 78 years old. So if you want to write in a 78-year-old man, write me in 2028. But I'm not really a candidate for president. I'm not really. And Shakyamuni was not a candidate for Buddhahood. He was a Buddha. He woke up. He did it. He did the thing. He realized the deep oneness of all life. The Buddha did this. Hanamatsuri is our celebration of the Buddha's awakening and attainment of enlightenment. A Buddha embodies the ultimate or fundamental principle of life, the fundamental reality of things. Embodying the fundamental reality with presence, Buddhas share teachings with us. We make statues of them, we draw paintings of them, we paint paintings of the Buddhas. Impressive statues and evocative paintings of the Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas can help us to understand the presence which they have, the presence which Shakyamuni had, the presence which all awoken persons have. Artistic expressions, artistic presentations have the power to influence us positively just the way a Buddha does when the Buddha is in the room with us. That influence that we receive from beautiful artwork is similar to the influence that enlightened, awoken persons have. If you get a chance to go to Honshu, the main island of Japan, among the things you should see is Byodo-in in south of Kyoto there. And the Byodo-in has this beautiful statue of Hanamido Buddha, an exquisite statue. And they made a replica of Byodo-in in Oahu, in Hawaii. So if you go to Hawaii, go see the temple. Don't spend too much time looking at the statue. It's not the same. But the grounds are quite lovely in Hawaii. They're, in fact, prettier than the Japanese grounds for Byodo-in. But the statue is really impressive. You see the real original Japanese statue in Japan at Byodo-in. That statue will move you. Those great works of art have the same power that the Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas have when we can meet them in person. Although the Buddha was not a god, and although Shakyamuni and Amida and all the Buddhas started out as ordinary people, just like you and me, still, they became persons of special worth, extraordinary power, extraordinary influence, exemplars, heroes of a sort. The Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas are spiritual heroes, which is why Buddhist artists carve impressive statues and paint magnificent paintings of them. The most recent of these exemplar heroes to have been born on earth, to our knowledge, was Shakyamuni Buddha. But as I mentioned, we celebrate the birth of Shakyamuni Buddha not just because he was born, but especially because of what he taught. So, what was that again, the things that he taught us? Well, the Buddhist canon in Chinese is 100,000 pages long. In Tibetan, it's longer than that. I'm not sure how long the Tibetan canon is, but somebody once counted the pages on the Chinese canon. It's 100,000 pages of teaching. Did Shakyamuni teach all of that in 45 years? Well, that question was addressed within his own life. Where are these teachings coming from? How many teachings are there? And there's a sutra in all the canons, Pali, Sanskrit, Chinese, where Shakyamuni is walking along with his beloved cousin Ananda, and this is probably when the Buddha's in his 70s. And so Ananda's been listening to his sermons now for about 30, 35 years, and he's starting to get worried, like, I can't keep track of all these teachings, And so he just flat out asked the Buddha, he says, well, World Honored One, how many teachings are there? And so the Buddha, they're walking in the forest. So the Buddha reaches down and grabs a handful of leaves off the forest floor and says, well, tell me, Ananda, where are there more leaves? In the palm of my hand or in the forest? Not a hard question. Ananda gets the answer right. He says, well, World Honored One, there are more leaves in the forest than there are in the palm of your hand. And the Buddha, in all canons, says to him, just so, Ananda, just so. The teachings that I give in my lifetime are like the leaves in the palm of my hand. The Dharma is like the leaves in the forest. There is no end to the teaching. 100,000 pages is just a beginning. And usually, we don't distinguish much between the teachings given by Shakyamuni himself and by the later students. An analogy I often remind you of is that researchers figured out about 100 years ago that Pythagoras did not know the Pythagorean theorem. That actually it was a third-generation student of Pythagoras who came up with that theorem. Well, when that student named that theorem the Pythagorean theorem, he wasn't trying to prop the theorem up with Pythagoras' name. He knew it was true. He could prove it was true. He was honoring the great teacher Pythagoras, through whose lineage he had been able to learn this. Just so, much of the Dharma is put into the mouth of the Buddha that has actually emerged after he passed on, because we are honoring him by saying only because of Shakyamuni does this teaching exist. But we don't distinguish sharply between the teachings of the Buddha and those that were given by his later students. Why would we, when tradition tells us that at his passing, about 500 of his students were completely awoken, thoroughly awoken. Anything they taught was as valid as what he taught. So there's all these teachings, but it being Shakyamuni's birthday and all, let me emphasize, nearing the close here now, teachings that we know he gave. And a teaching that almost surely was given during his life is recorded among other places in the Dhammapada, and that teaching is, this is the teaching of all awoken persons. Stop doing harm, do good, purify the mind. This was taught by the Buddha. Now I would say that it's important to stop doing harm, because we usually, if you think you're doing harm, you probably are. When I think I did something that wasn't right, it probably wasn't. But when you think you're doing a good thing, it might be or it may not be. You know, do good if you're quite sure it's good, but above all, stop doing harm to others. There's that line from John Lennon's All You Need Is Love. There's nothing you can sing that can't be sung. There's nothing you can do that can't be done. This is an attempt to make us a little more humble. Yes, there's much we must do. We must oppose racism. We must stop Asian hate. We must make people know that Black lives matter, Asian lives matter, Japanese American lives matter. We have so much to do, but we can't struggle for every moment. Every now and then you got to relax and just move forward. Let it be. Let it be. Let it be. Stop doing harm. Do good if you think you know that it's good. But there's nothing you can do that can't be done. And whereas the original teaching is purify the mind, I always would want to put that in a more vague form as allow the mind, heart, and body to become clear and composed. And they will, if we rely upon the promise of the Buddha. If we say the Nembutsu on occasion, Namo Amida Butsu. On occasion, say the Buddha's name in forms like, I rely upon the source of limitless wisdom and endless life, Namo Amida Butsu. If we occasionally say this and we rely on the Buddha's promise, we believe there's a goodness that has carried this promise to us, then we can relax and let go and move forward. We can become more clear, more calm, and more composed. We Jodoshinshu Buddhists just trust in the vow of universal liberation, trust in the promise of the Buddha. This is a very simple path, a very simple and direct way of being Buddhist. Our path is simple. It may not be easy, but it is simple. This is a vision that we share with, out of the basically roughly 1 billion Buddhists in the world, about 30 million of us are Jodoshinshu, something like that. This particular vision we're sharing with about 30 million people. We will make it to a transformative awakening to the reality which is enlightenment. We will. Separation is an illusion. You are not alone. This is our path, the Pure Land Buddhist path. Right now, about 1 person in 8 on this planet is Buddhist, and about 1/3 of us are in this Pure Land stream of tradition. You are not alone. We will make it to that transformative awakening of enlightenment. We will one day awaken just like Shakyamuni Buddha did on this day, April 8th, 2,536 years ago, give or take about 75 years. Our dating cannot be too exact. We are commemorating the birth of the Buddha here today for our Hanamatsuri service. We are honored to have been carried into this tradition, to share this tradition, and I will close the Dharma message portion of our Hanamatsuri service by saying the Buddha's name a few times. Please join me as you please. We rely upon the source of limitless wisdom and endless life. Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Thank you very much.
Now, if you'll join us in singing the Gatha in Lumbini's garden to celebrate Buddha's birthday. Thank you for joining us for today's Hanamatsuri service. I'd like to close today's service with this short message. Overcome anger by peacefulness. Overcome evil by good. Overcome the mean by generosity and the person who lies by truth. The Dhammapada. Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu.